There are exactly three types of people who work the graveyard shift: criminals, insomniacs, and poor bastards like me who made the wrong choices somewhere around freshman year and never quite got back on track. So when I got the offer to work security at the crumbling Westgate Mall, I said yes, faster than you could say unpaid student loans. Easy money, they said. Barely anyone around, they said. Just watch some cameras and make sure nobody sets the food court on fire. They failed to mention that barely anyone included whatever the hell lurked in those empty hallways after midnight. The place was a corpse with a neon sign. Half the stores were shuttered, for lease signs curled in dusty windows, and the air smelled like old pretzels and regret. My security office was basically a broom closet with a black and white monitor system that looked like it was installed during the Nixon administration. On my first night, as I juggled a cup of vending machine coffee that tasted like melted plastic, someone knocked on the door. I nearly spilled the whole thing on my lap. "Relax, rookie," said a voice so dry it could have been sandpaper. Standing there was a guy in a perfectly pressed janitor's uniform that looked suspiciously expensive. His name tag said Eli, but the way he carried himself, he was more "I own this joint" than "I mop up after teenagers." He leaned against the doorframe, smirking like he knew exactly how badly I'd wanted to scream. "First night? Is it that obvious?" I muttered, trying to salvage my dignity. "Nah," Eli said, stepping inside like he owned the place. "It's the twitching." He dropped into the cracked chair across from me and kicked his boots up on the desk, ignoring the thin layer of dust. His hair was silver at the temples, but his face didn't match it. Sharp cheekbones, unlined skin, eyes the color of gunmetal. "You don't have to be so nervous," he said. "Most of the time, the worst you have to deal with is a raccoon in the food court or some teenagers trying to film a TikTok seance." "Most of the time?" I echoed. He just smiled, slow and secretive, like he was in on a joke I didn't get yet. "Tell you what," he said, rising to his feet. "I'll give you the tour. You're going to want to know where not to step if you value your knees." He held the door open with a mock bow. "Welcome to Westgate Mall," he said, "where the lights flicker, the mannequins judge you, and the night never really ends." I laughed, because what else can you do when the alternative is running screaming into the parking lot? I followed him into the dark, empty corridors, feeling the first faint whisper of unease curl around my spine. And somewhere, in the distance, a payphone started ringing. By the second night, the glamorous novelty of being a lone protector of the mall had worn off. It was just me, a bunch of flickering fluorescent lights, and whatever was growing in the abandoned food court's nacho stand. I spent a good hour rotating between pointless tasks, checking that the automatic doors still didn't open, waving at dead security cameras, and dramatically pointing a flashlight into suspicious corners like I was auditioning for a low-budget ghost hunting show. And that's when I noticed it. The mannequins. The damn mannequins. They were supposed to be packed up, I swear. But somehow, a few stood scattered around the storefronts, frozen in half-hearted model poses. At first, I thought I was losing it. Wouldn't be the first time, thank you night shift caffeine. But as I walked past the shattered Claire's boutique, I could have sworn one mannequin's head turned slightly to follow me. I stopped, turned around. Nothing, just rows of lifeless plastic smiles, mocking me. "Yeah, okay," I muttered to no one. "Real original. What's next? A possessed escalator?" Behind me, the janitor, Brett, still suspiciously clean, chuckled softly. "They like you," he said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Oh, great. First night on the job and I'm already Employee of the Month for Haunted Mannequins Anonymous." He grinned, sharp and knowing. Could be worse. They usually like to trip people. I decided then and there that if I died in this mall, it would be out of stubbornness, not because some sentient H&M reject tackled me. We continued walking. Lights buzzed overhead, making the place feel more like a broken insect hive than a shopping center. Every now and then, I caught flickers of movement in the corner of my eye. Shadowy things, shapes that darted just out of view. Seriously, is this place built over a pet cemetery or something? I grumbled. Brett only smiled wider. You're asking the wrong questions. And here I thought the right question was, how fast can I file for unemployment? He laughed, a sound that was equal parts charming and spine-chilling. The thing was, as much as my sarcasm tried to shield me, deep down I knew this place wasn't just old, it was watching. And if the mannequins were the welcoming committee, I really didn't want to meet the management. It turns out that there's a weird kind of peace to sitting in a dead mall at 2 a.m., sipping questionable coffee from a cracked vending machine, and talking to someone who may or may not have been voted, most likely, to be a Victorian ghost in a past life. Brett slouched in the seat across from me, kicking his boots up on the table like he owned the place, which, considering how the mannequins seemed to defer to him, maybe he did. So, I said, swirling the lukewarm sludge in my cup. Level with me. Are you like the king of the abandoned mall people? He snorted. If I am, it's a pretty pathetic kingdom. No subjects, no taxes, no Starbucks. Honestly, that sounds better than most governments, I said. At least here, the corruption smells like burnt pretzels and despair. He grinned, teeth flashing too white in the dim light. You're quick. I'm sleep-deprived. Big difference. We fell into an easy rhythm, tossing jokes back and forth. But the more we talked, the more I noticed little oddities. Like how he never drank anything, never touched anything either. Not the coffee, not the chairs, not even the grimy Employee of the Month plaques still hanging from better days. And when he laughed, it was a little too perfect, like someone remembering what laughing used to feel like. So, I said casually, where do you work before this? Other haunted attractions? Abandoned amusement parks? Or were you more of a freelance spooky dude? He tapped his chin thoughtfully. Does liminal space count as a resume builder? Only if you can put it on LinkedIn. I expected another joke. Instead, Brett looked away toward the rows of shuttered shops, his face suddenly grave. I've been, around, he said. Places people forget. Places they don't want to remember. There was a sadness in his voice that punched through my snark shield like a wrecking ball. You ever get that feeling, he went on, that maybe you're not supposed to be somewhere, but you stay anyway, because leaving would be worse? I thought about my life. Dead-end job, half-finished degree, more second chances wasted than I cared to count. Yeah, I knew that feeling. Yeah, I said softly. I know exactly what you mean. He smiled at me then, not the too sharp grin he gave the mannequins, but something smaller, sadder, realer. And for a second the ghosts didn't seem so scary. Because maybe we were all just hanging around waiting for something or someone to notice we were still here. You ever hear a sound so wrong it punches you straight in the soul? That's how it felt at 3:13 a.m. when the dead payphone in the food court started to ring. Ring. Loud, piercing, wrong. Brett froze, mid-sentence, his smile evaporating like mist. The warm, witty guy I'd just been talking to vanished in a blink, replaced by someone, or something, coiled tight with fear. Don't answer it, he said. Not a suggestion, a command. Right, because answering old payphones in haunted malls is exactly what responsible adults do, I said. trying to cover my unease with sarcasm. Spoiler, it wasn't working. The phone kept ringing. Ring, ring. And somehow, even though it was an old rotary payphone duct taped to the wall, it sounded louder than everything else in the world. "Seriously," Brett said, voice low, "leave it alone." Naturally, being a brilliant genius and a little high on vending machine caffeine, I took exactly 3 steps toward it. "Jason!" Brett barked, sharp enough to stop me cold. "You don't know what's on the other side." "The IRS," I joked weakly. "Extended car warranty people?" He didn't laugh, not even a smirk. That's when I got really scared. The phone shrieked again, ring. And because apparently I have the survival instincts of a horror movie extra, I grabbed the receiver. Instantly, cold flooded up my arm like someone had dunked me in a bathtub full of ice. There was no voice, no breathing, just a low hiss, like static or maybe whispering. Tiny, urgent words slithering into my ear, too soft to understand but too angry to ignore. I slammed the phone back into its cradle so hard it swung wildly on its cord. My hand felt numb. Brett was at my side in a second, his face pale. "You're lucky," he muttered. "Sometimes it answers back." What the hell was that?" I stammered. He looked at me, eyes ancient in a young man's face. "That," he said, "was the mole calling. And it doesn't want you here?" "Cool," I said. "Fantastic. I'll just go work at Arby's like a normal failure, thanks." But deep down, I knew it was too late. I wasn't just in the mall anymore. The mall was in me. And whatever that call had awakened, it wasn't going back to sleep. After the phone call, things got worse. And by worse, I mean my life turned into a found footage horror movie and I didn't even get paid overtime. The mannequins, they weren't just standing still anymore. They'd moved, subtle at first, a few inches here, a tilt of the head there. But by the 3rd night, one was pressed up against the security office window, forehead smashed against the glass like it was trying to listen. Because that's not nightmare fuel or anything. Naturally, Brett suggested we do the most logical thing. Explore the abandoned service hallways behind the mall. Because why call an exorcist when you can investigate certain death firsthand, right? "You're lucky you're cute," I muttered as we clicked on our flashlights and pushed open a rusted maintenance door. Inside, the hallways felt wrong. Like the air itself was heavier, the walls too narrow, the kind of claustrophobic, dreamlike wrongness that whispered, "You don't belong here." Our footsteps echoed in a way that made it sound like something else was walking just a half step behind us. "So," I said, voice a little too high-pitched, "on a scale from 1 to The Shining, how cursed is this place?" Brett didn't answer right away. Instead, he stopped at a spot where the wall looked cracked and blackened, almost like it had been burned. "This is where it happened," he said softly. I didn't ask what it was. I wasn't sure I wanted to know. He ran his fingers over the scorch mark, but weirdly, the wall didn't react. His hand phased right through it, like smoke. I stared, mouth open like a trout. "Brett," I said slowly, "how come you can't touch anything?" He looked over his shoulder at me. His smile this time was thin, worn down like old leather. "Because I already tried to leave once," he said. "The mall didn't let me." Before I could even begin to process that little nugget of trauma, something creaked loudly from deeper in the hallways. Footsteps, heavy, dragging footsteps. Without thinking, I grabbed Brett's arm, except of course, my hand went straight through him like mist. Awesome. Peak survival move. The footsteps got closer. We ran. Well, technically, I ran. Brett just kind of floated briskly. We slammed through a side door and stumbled back into the main mall corridor. I bent over, gasping for breath, while Brett looked almost bored. "I am officially submitting my 2 weeks' notice to reality," I wheezed. "I hope HR accepts blood-signed resignation letters." Brett chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "You can leave," he said, voice low. "You should leave." I straightened up, heart still jackhammering. I stared at him, this beautiful, broken, not quite human, who was somehow still here, still trying. "I'm not leaving you here alone," I said, because apparently on top of being a professional idiot, I was also a glutton for punishment. Brett looked away, but not before I caught the tiny, grateful smile he tried to hide. And just like that, I was in this deep. Ghosts, cursed malls, haunted payphones. Fine, bring it on. But whoever, or whatever, was hunting in those service hallways, better pray it was ready for me too. Because sarcastic stubbornness? That's my real superpower. The mall wasn't trying to scare me anymore. It had moved on to negotiations. You know you're in deep when an ancient cursed building starts bargaining for your soul. At first, it was little things. The mannequin started holding items, things I thought about but never said aloud. A cup of coffee, my old college hoodie, a picture of my mum. Each time, the temptation was a little stronger. Each time, Brett stood silently beside me, shaking his head, no. "Nice try, Mole," I muttered under my breath after passing a mannequin offering me a Red Bull. "But it's going to take more than caffeine to sell my soul, like at least a Costco pizza." Brett cracked a tiny smile, but didn't laugh. His eyes were heavy, like he was carrying the weight of 1,000 sleepless nights. Finally, sitting in the middle of the dark food court under a broken sparrow sign, I asked, "What happened to you?" He hesitated. I almost thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said, "I made a wish." I leaned forward. "Okay, what kind of wish? Like a please help me pass my finals wish? Or more of a summon a dark entity by accident kind of deal?" Brett smiled grimly. "I wished I could stay in the place where I was happiest. I didn't mean here." He looked around the cracked tiles and flickering lights. But the mall. It heard me anyway. My stomach dropped. "You were happy here?" "For a while," he said. "Back when it was alive. Back when it smelled like pretzels and cheap perfume and hope. I met someone here once, thought maybe I'd be okay." "And now you're trapped," I said softly. He nodded. "Because you made a wish," I whispered. And suddenly, everything clicked into place. The payphone, the mannequins, the feelings scratching at my brain. The mall wasn't hunting random victims. It was waiting for wishes. Tiny, stupid, desperate wishes we all make when we're lonely or scared. The kind that slip out before you can stop them. I wish I wasn't so alone. I wish I could stay here forever. I wish I could forget. And the mall heard them, twisted them, fed on them. I stared at Brett, at this beautiful ghost boy caught like a fly in amber, and realized something else, something terrifying. I had already made a wish too. The first night, sitting across from him, laughing until my sides hurt, I had thought, I wish nights like this could last forever. And the mall had heard me. Oh, fantastic. I'd basically signed a demonic lease on my own soul with 0 down payment and a 100% interest rate. "You're scowling?" Brett said lightly. I pointed at him. "Because I'm trying to decide if I should punch you or kiss you for not warning me sooner." He grinned. "Can it be both?" Before I could answer, the broken speakers overhead crackled to life, playing distorted Christmas music even though it was July. Brett's smile faltered. "They're getting impatient." "Yeah," I said, standing up and brushing imaginary dust off my jeans. "Well, so am I. If this mall wanted a fight, It picked the wrong, exhausted, emotionally damaged night guard. Time to rip up my wish and maybe Brett's too, before either of us disappeared forever. You know that feeling when you realize you're about to do something incredibly stupid, but you're way too committed to back out? Yeah, that was me, storming back into the service hallways with nothing but a flashlight, a half-formed plan, and a ghost boy at my side. The mall felt different now, like it knew we were serious. The air shimmered, and walls that should have stayed solid wobbled slightly like a badly rendered video game. Storefronts blinked between states, alive and bustling one second, abandoned and rotting the next. Time itself was throwing a tantrum. Brett floated beside me, unusually quiet. "You sure about this?" he asked. "No," I said brightly. "But since when has that stopped me?" We reached the burned spot on the service hallway wall again, the same one Brett's hand had passed through, and I saw it for what it really was now. A door. Not a normal one. A door stitched together from desperate wishes and half-forgotten regrets. It pulsed softly like a heartbeat. "We have to break it," Brett said, "before it pulls you under too." "And how exactly do you break an eldritch regret door?" I asked. "With a crowbar? A motivational speech? Please tell me it's not interpretive dance." Brett chuckled, but his eyes stayed grim. "You have to give it something stronger than a wish." "Like what?" "An existential crisis. I've got plenty." He reached out, not quite touching me, but close enough to feel the chill. "Hope," he said quietly. "You have to want something more." Hope. The one emotion I had kept locked away like a dirty secret. Awesome. No pressure. The wall pulsed again. I could hear faint whispers now, my own voice, begging for things I didn't even remember asking for. The mall was offering them to me on a silver platter, a life without mistakes, without loneliness, without Brett fading away in front of me. It would have been so easy to take it. But I looked at Brett, who had been trapped by his own heart, and I knew what I had to do. I closed my eyes and thought, I want more than survival. I want more than this ghost town. I want real life, messy and painful and bright. I want to save him, even if I can't save myself. The air around us cracked, literally. The walls split like cheap porcelain, revealing a churning void behind them, filled with shattered memories and dying lights. The door, no, the curse, screamed. I screamed back, a final surge of strength, or stupidity, honestly. The line was blurry, and I grabbed Brett's hand. And this time, I didn't pass through him. His fingers locked with mine, solid and real, as the entire mall shuddered. The mannequins collapsed, the payphone burst into static, the cursed food court chairs flung themselves into the void like the world's worst exorcism. And the door, it cracked down the middle. Light spilled out, blinding, warm, furious light. Brett squeezed my hand and we ran, through the door, through the light, through everything. I woke up lying flat on my back in the mall parking lot. The sun was rising, gold and stupidly cheerful, like it had no idea how close the world had come to completely falling apart. For a minute, I just lay there, blinking at the sky, half expecting to see a mannequin looming over me, offering a free coffee coupon. Old habits die hard, but no, just light. Real, honest, blinding sunlight. I sat up slowly, my joints popping like microwave popcorn, and turned to see Brett standing a few feet away. Only this time, he wasn't flickering like a broken VHS tape. He looked solid, human, still pale as hell, still dressed like he moonlighted as a Hot Topic ghost, but real and breathing. "You made it," I croaked, voice about as reliable as a dollar store flashlight. "So did you," he said, smiling that soft, real smile, the one that made me want to simultaneously cry, kiss him, and kick something. "What now?" I asked. Brett looked out at the empty mall behind us, the building sagging under the weight of its own emptiness. It was just a mall again, a sad, broken mall no one cared about anymore. No whispers, no curses, no wish-eating nightmares. "I think," he said, "we go forward." I snorted. "Forward into what? Economic despair? Retail apocalypse?" He laughed, a genuine, full-body laugh that made me fall in love with life a little bit. "Forward into whatever's next," he said. "Together." "Gross," I said, grinning. I didn't survive ghost hell just to get stuck in a Hallmark movie. "Deal with it," Brett said, bumping his shoulder against mine. I stood up, brushing gravel off my jeans, and together we walked away from the ruins of all those lost wishes. No dramatic music, no slow-motion montage, just two idiots limping toward the sunrise, bruised but breathing, wrecked but weirdly hopeful. Because sometimes survival isn't about epic battles or fiery speeches. Sometimes it's about grabbing the hand of the last person you thought would save you and refusing to let go, even when the world tries to whisper you away. Especially then.
They told me not to look too long at the schedule board. Sounded like a joke at first. Transit guys aren't known for subtlety, unless it's when they're shaving time off a union shift. But no, the older ones were dead serious. If you see track 13 listed, just go get a coffee. It means something's coming through that isn't your business. I worked security for Metro Rail, midnight shift. It was mostly just chasing off kids with spray cans and making sure nobody died sleeping on the benches. But then came that night. 2:16 a.m. Dispatch buzzed. Possible trespasser, Platform C, camera 04. I flipped the monitor on and squinted. There it was. The board showed a departure from track 13. There is no track 13. There's a track 12. There's a service tunnel, and there's a whole lot of concrete wall in between. No switches, no doors, no room for mistakes. I called back. "System glitch?" "Nope. Check it out. Protocol." Because of course we had a protocol for this, just like we had one for voices in the PA system that aren't logged. I didn't like it, but orders were orders. I grabbed my flashlight, radio, and the rookie who'd only been with us 2 weeks. Kid named Marvin. Shaky hands, always over-explaining. But he had good instincts. He noticed things. I liked that. We went down the maintenance stairs. Platform C was deserted, except for an empty coffee cup spinning in the breeze like something had just passed by. Something fast. We stood staring at the steel panel marked Emergency Access, Track 12. It had a keyhole no one seemed to have a key for. Marvin tilted his head. "Sir, do you hear that?" I did. A distant mechanical rumble, the sound of something massive, sliding. And then came the light. Not from the tunnel, from behind us. The schedule board flickered and displayed. Track 13, last departure, 2:19 a.m. Marvin turned to me pale. "We need to leave." I nodded. We turned around. Only Marvin wasn't next to me anymore. He had stepped toward the tunnel, just a few steps, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. "Marvin!" He looked back once. His eyes were glassy, mouth open like he was about to say something. Then he vanished. Gone. No scream, no thud. Just the humming of fluorescent lights and a platform that suddenly felt 3 degrees colder. 2:20 a.m. I reported him missing. They sent 2 other guards. We filed paperwork. Cameras mysteriously had errors. Dispatch said nothing was logged at 2:19 a.m. They moved me to another station after that. I didn't argue. But sometimes when the station gets quiet, I hear a voice in the rails. A whisper just under the roar of the train. Track 13, all aboard. They called her the Screamer. Not to her face, of course. She didn't have much of one left. Every night at 3:03 a.m., the emergency call button on Platform B would buzz. Always the same message. Static, then a single, sharp wail that didn't sound quite human. Dispatch wrote it off as a hardware loop. Ghost data, they said. Cute, right? Problem was, someone kept turning off the cameras when it happened. I got curious. Maybe that's my flaw. Or maybe I was just tired of pretending nothing weird ever happened down here. 2:57 a.m. I walked the length of Platform B. No one around but a janitor muttering to himself and a few drunk ghosts disguised as commuters passed out on benches. I settled near the call box, waited. 2:59 a.m. My breath started to fog. The temperature dropped like someone opened a walk-in freezer. Not normal for a station with busted AC. Then, buzz. The call box lit up. I leaned in. Just static. Until, help. A woman's voice, ragged like her lungs were full of glass. Then came the scream. God, that sound. It didn't come from the box. It came from behind me. I turned. She stood at the far end of the platform. A woman in a station uniform, but everything was wrong. Her clothes were soaked, hair matted, and her mouth had been stretched, ripped, into a permanent scream. Like something had grabbed both corners and pulled. She didn't move, just watched me. I lifted my flashlight. The beam flickered as it hit her face like the batteries were dying. Then she moved, but not how people move. She glitched, like a corrupt video feed skipping frames. One moment at the platform's edge, the next, closer. "What do you want?" I asked. My voice cracked. She tilted her head. That mouth never stopped screaming, not even as she whispered, "I missed my train." And then she was gone. Not vanished, absorbed, into the wall behind her. The tiles rippled like water, and she just sank in. I stood frozen, heart pounding so hard it hurt. The janitor didn't even look up. I reported it. Again, no camera footage. Again, dispatch blamed tech bugs. But later, I found her ID in the locker room. Marta Reyes, employee from 1987, died on duty, fell onto the tracks during a shift change. Only, her body was never found. She was last seen near track 13. There's a storage room behind the old ticketing booths, one of those places everyone forgets exists until it starts remembering you. Officially, it's the lost and found. Unofficially, it's the place where things go to get lonely. I'd avoided it until Marta's ID badge turned up in my locker, wet, rusted, and smelling like damp earth. It hadn't been there the night before, and it hadn't been there since 1987. So I went down. Tuesday, 2:12 a.m. The hallway leading to the lost and found felt longer than usual. Lights flickered above like they were trying to warn me in Morse code. I passed old posters for jazz nights and a rat that looked up at me like it knew what was coming. The door creaked open without resistance. The room smelled like mildew and regret. Rows and rows of shelves filled with lost phones, unmatched shoes, stuffed animals with their eyes torn off, and umbrellas that looked like they'd been used to stab things that fought back. Then I saw it. A row labeled Unclaimed, Do Not Touch. Inside, a box labeled Reyes, Incident 12.87. I opened it. Inside were a cracked radio, a watch frozen at 3:03 a.m., and a Polaroid of Marta, standing on Platform B, taken from behind with a shadow looming beside her. Tall, too tall, no features, just the outline of a man where no one should have been. The temperature dropped again. A whisper scratched the back of my ear like a spider crawling across my skin. He took my voice. I turned. The door had closed behind me. Worse, it was locked. I banged. No response. The lights died. In the pitch black, I heard movement, not footsteps, dragging, like someone pulling a wet sack across the concrete floor. "Not yours," the voice hissed. Something brushed my leg. I screamed. Full lungs, no shame, and then, flick. The lights came back on. The door was open. Everything in the room was where it had been, neatly stacked, nothing out of place, except me. I was still holding the Polaroid, except now it had changed. The shadow beside Marta wasn't beside her anymore. It was behind me. We have a rule down here. Everyone taps in. No exceptions. Except for him. He's always last in line. Always wears the same tattered overcoat. Always carries a paper bag soaked through at the bottom. Smells like rain and burnt copper. Never talks. Never taps. The first time I tried to stop him, I barely touched his arm, and my scanner short-circuited. The second time, I tried calling him out. "Sir, you need to tap your..." He turned. His face was, well, I wish I hadn't seen it. Not because it was deformed or monstrous, because it was mine. Same nose, same tired eyes, same scar above the eyebrow I got when I was 9 and thought I could fly off the roof with a trash bag. Then he smiled. Not my smile. Wider. Wrong. The cameras never catch him. The gate logs don't show his name. But people know. Commuters whisper. Don't stand near the edge when he's on the platform. Some say they saw someone jump right after he passed. Others say no one was there at all. Last night I checked the footage again. There was no him, but I was there, standing still for 11 full minutes, staring at the tunnel like I'd forgotten how to blink. Hands limp, mouth slightly open. And in the reflection on the tunnel glass, there were 2 of me, one standing, one smiling. Here's the thing. There are only 12 tunnels in this system. Officially, structurally, mapped, sealed, confirmed. Ask the transit authority, ask the maintenance crew, ask the city planners. They'll all say the same thing. There is no Tunnel 13. So naturally, I found it on a Wednesday. Not on purpose, of course. I was chasing a lost maintenance bot. One of those annoying ones that talks in a cheery British accent while bumping into walls like it has a vendetta against geometry. It zipped past a no-access sign I'd never seen before and disappeared. And then I saw it. Carved into the wall behind some piping, barely noticeable unless you knew where to look. 13. Roman numerals scratched deep, like someone was trying to erase them and failed. The air was colder in there, not like HVAC cold, wrong cold, and silent. No echoes, no hum of electricity, just a heavy, swallowing stillness like the tunnel itself was holding its breath. The walls weren't concrete. They were soft, not damp, not moldy, software, like skin, almost. When my flashlight hit it at an angle, the surface moved, like it didn't like the light. I turned around immediately, only I couldn't find the exit. The hallway stretched in both directions, infinite, seamless, breathing. I don't remember how I got out. I woke up in the break room, face down in a bowl of instant noodles with a nosebleed and a key card from 1973 in my pocket. Tunnel 13 doesn't exist. But now, sometimes when I close my eyes on the night shift, I hear something knocking from inside the walls. They tell you not to fall asleep on the train. Not because of crime or safety or missed stops. No, because some trains don't stop. Ever. It happened on a graveyard shift. I was reviewing CCTV footage from Platform 6B, the one that's always under construction, yet somehow still operates. At 3:13 a.m., a train arrived. No schedule matched. No announcements were made. No driver was listed. But it was there. The cameras glitched when the doors opened. Not static, distortion. Like something behind the lens didn't want to be seen. Then I noticed, no one boarded, no one left. The train just sat there, humming low like it was waiting. At 3:16 a.m., the doors closed. It pulled away, slow and smooth, except it never reached the next station. I checked every feed down the line. Nothing. No sign of it. Then the calls started. First from passengers, then from loved ones. He got on the train, but never came home. She texted from the car. Now her phone's dead. He said it felt colder than usual. like something was wrong. The names all matched the list of people who'd gone missing near the tracks over the past 30 years. The train doesn't run on rails, not anymore. It runs on memory, guilt, and things left behind. And sometimes, when I stand on the empty platform long enough, I hear it, that low, hungry hum, and a voice just beneath it, whispering, "All aboard, no turning back." So if you're ever on the train and the lights flicker and the next stop seems to take just a bit too long, look out the window. If the tunnel is pitch black, too quiet, and smells like rain on hot concrete, you missed your stop, and now the train won't let you off.